Now, Crash Bandicoot 4 has been out for a few months now, and you might be wondering, how does the game actually fare out, and is it actually worth it to buy it right now in 2021? There will be no story spoilers in this review along the way, and some of these points, both good and bad, are solely handpicked, so I don't give away too much of the game that might spoil the experience for you. Since whether you like the game or not will solely dependent for each person, this video will be mentioning the good and bad side of the game in terms of the general viewpoint. We'll start off with the good first, and no doubt in my mind, the story of the game is one of it. Crash Bandicoot 4 story is an awesome and fun experience to enjoy, and yes, even if you haven't played the previous games before. But of course, if you are a veteran player of the series, there are a lot of throwbacks and references to older games for you to enjoy, since this game is a direct sequel to Crash Bandicoot 3. However, that doesn't mean that this isn't for you if you didn't play any Crash games before. The overall story is funny, and the characters, it is extremely quirky that gives you a Looney Tunes vibe, and you don't really need to play the previous games to actually catch up to it. It sets off right and you won't get confused, so if you're into the story alone and you're keen on trying out your very first Crash title, this game will be a great place to start. Now let's move on to the gameplay side, which is really the other great thing about this game. Sure, it is really different compared to the last games where it isn't really as fast paced before like this one, but I take that as a big plus point. Because it is a faster pace, it is considered to be one of the hardest Crash games to date, especially if you aren't really playing a lot of platforming type of games. I myself personally love playing harder games like the Soulsborne games, which includes the Dark Souls, Sekiro, Demon Souls, and etc. Mainly because it is extremely difficult but rewarding at the same time, and for Crash Bandicoot's 4 case, it is definitely up in the Dark Souls level of difficulty when compared to the last games. But don't let that put you off, however, if you don't like hard games, it is still a great fun to enjoy. Boss fights are really entertaining as well, and yes, they can be extremely hard at times. I'm not gonna say too much here to avoid spoiling it for it. But do not worry, the boss fights are really cool, both in terms of visually, presentation, and gameplay. You have the new mask, also known as the Quantum Mask, that gives you different abilities to traverse across the map as well. It introduces new ways for you to play, and each of their powers are actually pretty cool, with each of their own distinct strengths and weaknesses. Plus, they have personality to begin with, so that is another great plus point to add into the story side of things. And also, besides Crash and Coco, you can play other characters of the series as well from time to time, as they will provide players with different skill sets to actually play through the map. Each character gives off a different vibe, and it is extremely exciting, especially when you get to play a new character for the very first time. There are multiple Easter eggs in this game too, and it can be an awesome find if you've played something like Crash Team Racing or the Spyro games, and I love each of these little touches that the devs decided to include into Crash Bandicoot 4. Now, one of the huge plus point is of course the replayability. Replayability is another great plus side, and you can expect to dive at least tens if not hundreds of hours into the game alone. The content the game has to offer is absolutely incredible, plus there are multiple collectibles to collect and challenges for you to complete, such as time trials, the inverted modes, and more to keep your attention to the game much longer. However, with all these collectibles and additional side activities here, there are some downsides to this as well that you might not really like, which I'll get to it later in the video when we are talking the bad side of the game. Another great thing about the game is how it looks and sounds. The music is done right, maybe not as memorable as some of the music from older games, but I do tend to find myself enjoying most of it, as they do keep the atmosphere of the levels up to a level where it does justice. And that mainly is because of how stunningly beautiful the level design actually is. Hop onto the game yourself and you will immediately recognize that there are just so much more happening in the world around you. The visuals itself is extremely stunning, and the backgrounds have tons of stuff happening too, where most of the other games just place a plain wallpaper behind and leave it at that. Crash 4 handles this perfectly in the visual department, and you will find yourself stopping every few seconds just to see what's happening over in the horizon of your screen. It is very much alive, and it constantly reminds you that there is always something big happening in this magnificent world. Now, on the performance side, if you're playing on the PS4 Pro or Xbox One X, and of course the next gen consoles, you will experience the game in a full 60 FPS. for the PS4 base and Slim together with the Xbox One S will be locked in a 30 FPS frame rate however, but do expect a decent performance across this last gen's platform. I personally played it on my PS4 Slim before the game actually came out for the PS5, and overall I am pretty impressed with the performance even though there are so much happening in the world around it. Now that we have talked about the good, there are some bads that you might want to think about if you are planning in getting this game. But before we go on to that, I would like to say that if you actually enjoyed this review or if I've actually changed your mind into buying this game, do leave me a like and subscribe on the channel as there are more Crash Bandicoot content coming out just like this one. Now, the first bad thing about this game, and being quite a big one for most people, is the lack of online multiplayer. The game does give you an option to play local co-op and PvP, but that only limits 2 players needing to be right there and there with you locally. There is no online capabilities at the moment, and that could actually turn some of you down if you are hoping that there are at least a decent online mode. But of course, if this doesn't bother you and you're just in it for the story and the single player experiences and maybe a little bit of couch co-op with your friends and family, this won't be a big issue. Now, another bad side is a slight controversy in terms of the game's progression. I've mentioned that the collectibles and side activities is a plus side, but only if you really like the game. Why do I say that? It's because the game will be quite of a grind to get all of these achievements and collectibles. Furthermore, you actually need to grind for some of these collectibles to be able to achieve a 100% and a secret 106% to unlock the secret ending of the game. So this is a little bit of a mixed bag, but I don't see this as a big issue if you really love the game, unless you don't like playing the same levels multiple times over and over again. Overall, there's really nothing much I could say about the bad side of the game. Crash Bandicoot 4 is a great mix of fun, both story-wise and gameplay-wise, which I think that everyone should definitely buy it and give it a go. The bad side of the game shouldn't really pull you away from the amazing amount of content that the game has to offer, and I would highly urge you to try the game out if you're already thinking of getting the game. In the meantime, you might want to check out my other videos here on the screen as well, as you might enjoy them just as much as I did in making them. This is the Viperian signing off. Thanks for watching and stay awesome.